They crowned him for his virtues, admired his integrity, trusted his noble heart. He believed in the inherent goodness of man, in the power of moral conviction. Yet, in a single devastating stroke, his reign shattered, not by external force, but by the brittle foundation of his own idealism. What if the very qualities we deem strong are in fact the keys to our ultimate vulnerability? What if true confidence isn't a feeling, but a weapon? History is littered with the ruins of those who built on hope, not reality. But then, there are the few who understood. Machiavelli uncovered a chilling, indispensable characteristic, one that most fear to name, yet defines the truly confident. A brutal truth that ensures not just survival, but enduring power. Prepare to see the world as it truly is. We are constantly inundated with narratives celebrating a particular brand of confidence, the kind born from self-belief, from an unshakable sense of self-worth, from authenticity. We are told to trust our gut, to be ourselves, to cultivate an inner peace that radiates outward. This idealized vision paints confidence as an inherent quality, nurtured by positive affirmations, a strong moral compass, and a genuine belief in the goodness of humanity. It's a comforting thought, a noble aspiration. A person who exudes this kind of confidence is often seen as a beacon of integrity, someone who inspires trust and fosters collaboration. They are the leaders who appeal to our better angels, the ones who believe that virtue alone is enough to navigate the treacherous currents of human ambition and conflict. Indeed, popular psychology and motivational gurus preach that true strength lies in vulnerability, in embracing imperfections, in open communication, and in building consensus through empathy. They teach that to be genuinely confident is to be unafraid of one's own flaws, to wear one's heart on one's sleeve and to extend trust freely, believing that such an approach will be reciprocated. This perspective champions a world where intentions are pure, where agreements are honored, and where mutual respect guides all interactions. It envisions a state of affairs where disputes are resolved through reason and where cooperation triumphs over competition. The individual who subscribes to this philosophy walks through life with an open hand and an open heart, expecting the same in return. They believe that their intrinsic worth, their good intentions, and their transparent nature will shield them from malevolence and deceit. This idealistic approach, while noble in its aspirations, is built upon a fundamental misconception of human nature and the unforgiving reality of power dynamics. It is a house built on sand, vulnerable to the slightest tremor of self-interest, envy, or malice. Consider the consequences of this naive optimism. The idealist, armed with their internal conviction and moral rectitude, enters a world teeming with individuals driven by far less benevolent motives. They trust the sycophant whispering sweet nothings, mistaking flattery for genuine loyalty. They reveal their vulnerabilities, believing that authenticity breeds connection, only to find those weaknesses exploited with ruthless efficiency. They operate under the assumption that rules will be followed, agreements upheld, and promises kept, because that is what should happen. They fail to grasp that in the brutal arena of human affairs, what should be and what is are often diametrically opposed. This moral framework, rigid and unyielding, blinds them to the shifting allegiances, the hidden agendas, and the naked ambition that perpetually shape the course of events. They are easily manipulated, outmaneuvered, and ultimately destroyed, not because of a lack of skill or intelligence, but because their internal compass is calibrated to an imaginary world, not the one that truly exists. Their confidence, rooted in self-perception and external validation of their goodness, becomes their greatest liability, leaving them unprepared for the inevitable betrayals and the harsh realities of power. Their unwavering belief in ideal outcomes leaves them vulnerable to the cunning and the ruthless, who perceive their idealism not as strength, but as a gaping weakness to be exploited without remorse. It is precisely this chasm between ideal and reality that Niccolò Machiavelli, the Florentine master of statecraft, so incisively illuminated. For Machiavelli, the path to true confidence and enduring power is not paved with good intentions or moral rectitude, but with a stark, unflinching acknowledgement of human nature as it truly is. For it is to be noted that men are generally ungrateful, fickle, liars and deceivers, avoiders of danger, eager for gain. This chilling observation forms the bedrock of his philosophy. To build one's confidence, or indeed one's state, on the shifting sands of human loyalty or an imagined morality is an act of suicidal folly. The true strategist, the enduring prince, understands that power is not about how people should behave, but how they do behave. Machiavelli introduces a radically different conception of confidence, one rooted in virtue. This is not virtue in the Christian sense of goodness or piety. Instead, Machiavellian virtue encapsulates a potent blend of skill, strength, astuteness, foresight, adaptability, and decisive action. It is the capacity to act effectively in the world, to seize opportunities, to overcome obstacles, and to adapt one's methods to the exigencies of the moment, regardless of moral qualms. True confidence in this paradigm is not an internal feeling of certainty, but an external projection of unshakable resolve, forged by the pragmatic understanding that one must learn how not to be good. It is the conviction that arises from having meticulously observed the raw, unvarnished truth of human behavior, and having prepared oneself to navigate its complexities with cold, calculated precision. The truly confident individual, according to Machiavelli, possesses an inherent, almost instinctual ability to assess situations for what they are, stripped of sentimentalism and moral pretense. Their confidence is derived from their capacity to make the difficult, often unpopular, but ultimately necessary decisions to secure their objectives and maintain their state, be it a nation, an organization, or their personal standing. This characteristic is an unshakable resolve, the unwavering commitment to act, to command, to adapt and to endure, even when faced with choices that would paralyze the morally scrupulous. It is the confidence of a surgeon making a painful but life-saving incision, not the confidence of a child wishing away a disease. It is the deep-seated certainty that comes from knowing you are prepared for the worst and possess the tools, both visible and invisible, to confront it. This is a pragmatic, cynical confidence, born from the battlefield of human interaction, where success is the only true measure of merit. This kind of confidence is not fragile. It is forged in the crucible of reality. It does not rely on others' benevolence, but on a keen understanding of their self-interest. It recognizes that while love is a bond easily broken by men who are naturally selfish, fear is maintained by a dread of punishment that never fails. Therefore, to project unwavering confidence means to project an aura of control, of capability, and of a willingness to do what is necessary. The observation of human nature, in its crudest form, its greed, its envy, its fickleness, its ambition, is the prince's initial weapon. This brutal truth, once acknowledged and internalized, liberates the individual from the shackles of idealism, granting them the freedom to act with strategic clarity and unhesitating resolve. It transforms confidence from a passive state of mind into an active, potent force, a cornerstone of enduring power. For love is a bond of obligation which men, being bad, break when it suits them, but fear is maintained by a dread of punishment which never fails. Comment Power Respects Power to understand this truth and subscribe for the next lessons on maintaining the state. Having stripped away the comforting illusions of idealistic confidence, we now delve into the practical architecture of Machiavellian strength. The unshakable resolve, that defining characteristic of the truly confident person, is not an innate gift, but a carefully constructed edifice supported by several interconnected pillars drawn directly from the political philosophy of the prince. These are not abstract concepts, but actionable strategies designed to navigate and dominate the intricate web of human affairs. The first, and perhaps most crucial pillar, is the mastery of virtù over fortuna. As previously noted, Machiavellian virtù is far removed from conventional morality. It embodies a dynamic, proactive excellence, a potent blend of skill, foresight, courage, and cunning. It is the capacity to adapt, to seize opportunity, and to impose one's will upon the chaotic forces of fortuna, fate, luck, or circumstance. Fortuna, Machiavelli famously declared, is a woman, and if you want to hold her down, you have to beat her and manhandle her. This vivid metaphor underscores the proactive, almost aggressive stance required. The confident individual does not passively await favorable winds. They rig the sails, steer the ship, and if necessary, weather the storm with audacious determination. Their resolve isn't a hope that things will go well, but a certainty that they can make things go well, or at the very least mitigate disaster. Consider a leader facing a sudden economic downturn, a stroke of fortuna. The idealist might appeal for unity, offer reassurances rooted in abstract principles, or even freeze in indecision, hoping the storm passes. The individual possessing Machiavellian virtue, however, acts. They might implement unpopular but necessary austerity measures, forge unexpected alliances to secure resources, or even initiate a bold, calculated gamble to reshape the economic landscape. Their confidence stems from their readiness to make swift, brutal choices, not from a belief that the market will somehow self-correct. They understand that inaction is often the most perilous course. Their virtue is demonstrated in their capacity to predict potential threats, build defenses in times of peace, and exploit weaknesses in adversaries when fortune turns against them. The truly confident person, therefore, is not merely resilient. They are a formidable force capable of bending circumstance to their will. Their actions create their own luck, demonstrating that the future is not merely something to be awaited, but something to be forged. Secondly, the unshakable resolve manifests profoundly in the strategic application of the lion and the fox archetype. Machiavelli posited that a prince must learn to imitate the fox and the lion, for the lion cannot protect himself from traps, and the fox cannot defend himself from wolves. One must therefore be a fox to recognize traps, and a lion to frighten wolves. This duality is not an invitation to choose one over the other, but a command to embody both, seamlessly shifting between strength and subtlety as the situation demands. The confident individual is neither brute nor pure trickster. They are a master of strategic adaptability. The lion aspect represents the projection of overwhelming strength, authority, and intimidation. When rivals or dissenters appear, the lions roar, a display of decisive power, a public reprimand, a swift and visible punishment, serves to quell opposition and instill fear. This isn't about constant aggression, but about the credible threat of it. It's about cultivating a reputation for formidable power that discourages challenges before they even arise. The confidence here is in one's capacity to command respect, even if that respect is born of apprehension. Conversely, the fox represents cunning, deception, and the ability to navigate hidden dangers. This is the intelligence to discern hidden traps, to anticipate betrayals, to understand the motivations of rivals, and to manipulate appearances. A confident individual understands that brute force alone is insufficient. Sometimes, the most effective path is indirect, veiled, and deceptively simple. They are adept at misdirection, at planting seeds of doubt in the minds of their adversaries, and at leveraging information to their advantage. Their resolve is anchored in their acute perception of reality and their willingness to employ any tool, be it overt power or subtle trickery, to secure their position. Consider, for example, a CEO navigating a hostile takeover attempt. The lion might issue a public statement of defiance, mobilizing shareholders and brandishing legal threats. The fox might simultaneously engage in secret negotiations, plant misleading information in the media, or subtly undermine the rival's internal support. The truly confident leader integrates both, their resolve manifesting in a dynamic and unpredictable response that keeps adversaries perpetually off balance. Finally, the characteristic of unshakable resolve is deeply intertwined with Machiavelli's nuanced understanding of the use of cruelty. This is perhaps the most challenging yet essential aspect of his philosophy. Machiavelli distinguishes between cruelties well used and cruelties ill used. Well-used cruelties are those committed at a stroke, out of the necessity of securing one's life and position, and not persisted in afterwards, but converted into advantages for the subjects. These are swift, decisive, and often brutal actions, applied once and for all with the explicit purpose of establishing immediate and unquestionable stability. They are not acts of wanton sadism, but surgical strikes designed to eliminate threats, quell rebellion or enforce a new order with such finality that further resistance becomes unthinkable. The confidence here is in one's judgment to know when such an action is absolutely necessary, and in one's fortitude to execute it without hesitation or remorse. It is the ability to prioritize the long-term stability and security of the state over immediate moral qualms. Ill-used cruelties, on the other hand, are those that increase over time rather than diminishing, which are prolonged. These are acts of prolonged oppression, arbitrary violence, or capricious punishment that breed lasting resentment, instability, and deep-seated hatred. Such actions erode the very foundations of power, turning subjects into enemies. The truly confident individual, possessing unshakable resolve, understands this critical distinction. Their strength lies not in their capacity for cruelty itself, but in their strategic restraint and precise application of it. They do not revel in causing suffering. They calculate its necessity and its impact. When a moment demands a decisive, harsh action to protect the greater good of their objective, they act with a clear mind and an iron will, knowing that hesitation or a softer approach might ultimately lead to greater chaos and their own downfall. Their confidence is in their strategic foresight and their unwavering commitment to the objective, even if it requires them to appear ruthless. This is the chilling calculus of power, where the true measure of confidence is not an avoidance of difficult choices, but the unflinching readiness to make them and to live with their consequences for the ultimate consolidation of power. Having established the foundational pillars of Machiavellian strength, we now turn to the internal landscape of the astute leader and the external projection of their unshakable resolve. This is the realm where the abstract principles of virtue, the lion and the fox, and the strategic use of decisive action coalesce into a tangible, observable reality for the populace. It is a carefully orchestrated performance, a grand theater of power, designed not merely to govern, but to dominate perceptions and dictate behavior through an intimate understanding of human psychology. The first and perhaps most arduous battle for the aspiring leader is the internal war, a ruthless struggle against one's own ingrained moralities and sentimental attachments. The defining characteristic of unshakable resolve demands an almost surgical detachment from conventional ethics. To effectively navigate the treacherous currents of power, one must sever the ties that bind the common man. The instinctive aversion to harsh measures, the desire for universal approval, the paralysis of guilt. The truly confident individual, in the Machiavellian sense, understands that the goodness preached by society is a luxury that those who wield ultimate authority often cannot afford. As Machiavelli famously stated, a prince, so as to hold his state, is often forced to not be good. This is not an endorsement of malevolence for its own sake, but a recognition that the preservation of one's power, and by extension, the stability of the state, be it a kingdom, a company, or a personal domain, frequently necessitates actions that would be deemed immoral in private life. The first victory, therefore, is over one's own hesitation. It is the conquest of the internal voice that whispers doubts, that advocates for compromise where none should be. The confident strategist cultivates an emotional discipline that enables them to inflict necessary injuries without personal malice and to bestow benefits without expecting genuine affection in return. This mental hardening is the crucible in which unshakable resolve is truly forged. Without this internal detachment, the leader remains a slave to public opinion, a puppet of their own conscience, incapable of the decisive, often ruthless actions required to maintain supremacy. Their confidence is thus a product of self-mastery, the ability to override human frailties for the greater strategic imperative. Following this internal victory, the leader can then master the manipulation of public perception. For Machiavelli, governing is as much about managing appearances as it is about exercising direct force. The masses, he observed, judge more by their eyes than by their hands, because everyone can see, but few can feel. This profound insight underscores the importance of crafting a compelling public image, one that fosters the desired responses of respect, awe, or even apprehension, regardless of the leader's true nature or methods. The dilemma of being loved or being feared is central to this manipulation. Machiavelli's logical, if brutal, conclusion is that it is much safer to be feared than loved if one of the two must be wanting. Love, being dependent on the fickle affections of men, is an unreliable foundation for power. Fear, however, sustained by the dread of punishment, is a constant and far more potent deterrent. The unshakable resolve of the confident leader manifests in their ability to strategically cultivate this fear, not abject hatred which would breed rebellion, but a profound, respectful awe. This is a fear born of certainty, the certainty that the leader is capable of decisive action, that their authority is absolute, and that challenges to their power will be met with swift and effective consequences. Every public appearance, every pronouncement, every action is a carefully calculated move in this grand theatrical performance. The objective is not to be a tyrant, but to project an aura of such formidable power and control that disobedience becomes unthinkable, not just because of the punishment, but because of the sheer futility of resistance. The populace must believe in the leader's unwavering competence and their absolute authority, seeing their position as an unassailable bastion of power. This cultivated perception, rather than brute force alone, becomes the ultimate guarantor of stability and obedience. Finally, the construction of this formidable image culminates in building the facade of virtues. While the leader must learn how not to be good behind the scenes, public perception demands the projection of traditional virtues. It is unnecessary for a prince to have all the good qualities I have enumerated, but it is very necessary to appear to have them, Machiavelli advised. The confident leader understands that the masses crave narratives of morality, justice, and benevolence. Therefore, they meticulously craft a public persona that embodies these desired traits: mercy, faithfulness, humanity, integrity, and religiosity. Each public act, each decree, each gesture is a performance designed to reinforce this carefully constructed facade. This isn't hypocrisy in the conventional sense, it is strategic deception, a necessary tool for maintaining the illusion of a morally upright leader while simultaneously engaging in the often amoral acts required to preserve power. The unshakable resolve allows the leader to maintain this duality without internal conflict. They possess the mental discipline to compartmentalize their actions, understanding that the exigencies of statecraft operate on a different plane than personal ethics. A leader might, for example, authorize a harsh crackdown on dissent, yet simultaneously fund public works, make charitable donations, or issue decrees promoting justice. These seemingly contradictory actions are all part of the same strategic play. The former establishes fear and order, while the latter reinforces the facade of benevolence and concern for the people. The reputation thus built serves as both an armor, deflecting criticism and legitimizing difficult decisions, and a potent weapon, reinforcing the leader's influence over the judgment of the populace. It is the ultimate expression of confidence, the ability to control not just actions, but the very narrative of one's own power, bending public opinion to serve the overarching objective of enduring dominion. You have learned the stark reality of human nature and mastered the indispensable tools of power: the strategic mind, the calculated performance, the willingness to shed the comfort of conventional morality. Now, before we unveil how this unshakable characteristic solidifies your legacy, ensure you are subscribed, for the ultimate wisdom is reserved for those willing to act, to transform understanding into enduring dominion. The pinnacle of Machiavellian confidence is revealed not merely in strategic thought or public projection, but in the execution and timing of decisive action. This is the moment when virtue truly seizes fortuna, when preparation meets opportunity with an unwavering hand. Machiavelli's counsel here is crystal clear. Injuries ought to be done all at one time, so that being tasted less, they offend less, while benefits should be given little by little, so that they may be more thoroughly enjoyed. This principle encapsulates the essence of decisive action rooted in unshakable resolve. A truly confident individual, armed with this philosophy, does not dither. When the moment calls for a decisive purge of rivals, a complete overhaul of an ineffective system, or the establishment of new, unchallengeable laws, they act with the speed and precision of a surgeon. This is not merely a coup in the colloquial sense, but a fundamental re-engineering of the existing order. Imagine a nascent leader inheriting a chaotic faction riddled with internal dissent. The idealist might attempt reconciliation, dialogue, and slow reform. The Machiavellian strategist, however, identifies the core sources of opposition, isolates them, and then eliminates them swiftly, publicly, and completely in one fell swoop. The injury is profound, but its singular nature prevents prolonged resentment and allows the healing process or the forgetting to begin immediately. This act of virtue serves to demonstrate absolute control, sending an unequivocal message to any potential challengers. Resistance is futile, and the new order is unyielding. The confidence here stems from the certainty that the decisive act, however harsh, will ultimately lead to greater stability and prevent a prolonged, more damaging struggle. It is the cold calculus that one large, immediate pain is preferable to 1,000 nagging wounds. This masterstroke, executed with perfect timing and unwavering conviction, solidifies the leader's position, transforming them from a contender into an unassailable authority. Yet, the execution of the masterstroke is only the beginning. The true measure of unshakable resolve lies in the immediate and sustained focus on consolidation and the new order. A true victory is not the event itself, but the enduring stability and control that it subsequently creates. The confident leader does not rest on their laurels. They understand that the moment of decisive action opens a critical period for entrenching power and preventing a resurgence of old threats. This involves a systematic establishment of the foundations of their new authority, creating institutions, laws, and systems that perpetuate their rule and preempt future challenges. This is where the subtle craft of the fox complements the decisive power of the lion. This consolidation might involve rewriting constitutional frameworks, restructuring key government or organizational departments, installing loyalists in crucial positions, or implementing social policies that secure the allegiance of the populace, those benefits given little by little. The purpose is to build a state, a robust, self-sustaining structure of power, influence, or legacy that can withstand the shifting tides of time and the unpredictable whims of fortuna. The unshakable confidence of the leader is demonstrated in their long-term vision and their meticulous planning for perpetuation. They do not merely react to events, they proactively shape the environment to ensure their continued dominance. They understand that a moment of triumph is fleeting unless it is immediately followed by rigorous efforts to entrench and institutionalize the gains. This tireless work, this constant vigilance in fortifying one's position, is the mark of a leader whose confidence is not merely about surviving, but about building something that will endure beyond their immediate actions. They construct a legacy, a framework of power, designed to be resistant to the machinations of future adversaries and the vagaries of fate. In conclusion, the characteristic that truly defines a confident person, through the unvarnished lens of Machiavelli, is not an intrinsic sense of self-worth or a moral certainty. It is, instead, an unshakable resolve, a pragmatic, deeply cynical, yet profoundly effective capacity to see the world as it is, stripped of all comforting illusions. It is the mental and emotional fortitude to discard conventional morality when necessary, to embrace the duality of the fox and the lion, to make painful but decisive choices, and to act with unwavering purpose to secure and maintain one's state. This confidence is born from an acute understanding of human nature's inherent flaws and a courageous, almost brutal willingness to leverage those flaws for strategic advantage. The supreme power, then, is not a matter of inherent goodness or an absence of vice, but of unadulterated efficacy. It is the ability to perceive the intricate, often ugly realities of human interaction and to possess the courage, the intellect, and the iron will to act in accordance with that vision. It is the relentless pursuit of order and stability in a world that is inherently chaotic, unpredictable, and often hostile. This Machiavellian confidence is the builder of thrones, the shaper of destinies, and the ultimate guarantor of a legacy that does not merely exist, but profoundly endures. For in the end, the truly confident individual is not measured by their intentions, but by their unwavering capacity to command, to control, and to conquer, building an unassailable domain that stands the test of time.